You can't even see the road. And a tree branch hit the front of the car. This is in the road now. That was crazy. Hi everyone, I'm Kelly, and in today's video we're going to be talking about our last car camping trip from a few months ago. So back in the fall we got a used Honda Element and wanted to take that car camping before Noelle was born. So the break between Christmas and New Year's we decided that we were going to go on a little car camping trip. So the plan was the first day we'd drive from Seattle to Cape Disappointment State Park and then spend the night there. And then the second day we'd just basically travel all down the Oregon coast and then end up back in one of the Oregon state parks. And then we'd hit up the Tillamook Creamery and make our way back on the third day. So on the first day we drove from Seattle to Cape Disappointment State Park, which took about 3 hours. On the way there we stopped to get some groceries and then just went straight to the park and got there when it was already dark. On the way there it was raining pretty hard, which we knew it was gonna rain, but I don't think I knew it was gonna rain that much. It's raining. We're like the only people here. The camp host is here. I saw another family, but I think they had a yurt. Nobody else in this loop. Anthony's setting up the canopy, or at least getting it out, and then we'll both set it up. So hopefully we have some protection from the rain. So we backed up the car in the spot up towards like the camping table and then put down the tailgate of the Element. So we were able to sit on the tailgate and then use the table as our cooking area, which worked out pretty well. So once we finished eating, we did our sleeping setup. So we pushed the front seats forward and then reclined the back 2 seats. And then on top of the seats, we had an air mattress that we were borrowing from our friend. And then we had like a blanket and then just used our sleeping bags as our own blankets. True van lifers. Element tour. We got this side. Our other stuff up here, toiletries. This is drying. This, we haven't really figured this out, but this is the rain coming in. And this is a t-shirt hanging across these bars so we can watch a movie. Oh yeah. And Manny's right here.
Manny's sleeping.
So the next morning it stopped raining. We decided that I think we were gonna get breakfast like on the way. So we just walked around the campsite, which was pretty nice, and we were able to like go to the beach and check it out a little bit. But we noticed that there were some coastal flood warnings in Oregon, which didn't really seem like a concern, but it ended up being a concern. So we drove from our campsite to this one lookout at Cape Disappointment State Park, which was really cool. Super PNW vibes with like the waves crashing and the lighthouse, and it was just like super cloudy and gray. So after we went to that little lookout, we drove across this bridge to Oregon, and our first stop there was a Dutch Bros in Astoria. We just went to Dutch Bros in Astoria, but they lost power, so we were able to get our drink for free. So we thought that was a fun, exciting little way to start the morning, but it was only the beginning. We added another stop to our list, and that was Goodwill in Warrenton, which was a little bit more south of Astoria. But the Goodwill's closed. I think a lot of the stores in this area are closed because all the power is out. Like the traffic lights aren't working. So we probably won't do the whole trip that we had planned. So we're trying to find fish and chips, a Goodwill, and then we'll go to the Tillamook Creamery, have dinner there, and then just go to our campsite. We continued our way down, went into Seaside, which is another town over there, and we were stopped because there was this one road that was super washed out. I wish I had gotten some footage of it, and I don't know if the Element would have made it. We had just watched those videos on YouTube of this one road. I don't know where it is. I think it's somewhere like in the UK, and it's just this compilation of all these cars trying to get through it. And a lot of times the cars don't make it. So I just did not want us to end up like that. So we were like, okay, let's come up with plan D. So plan D was we would still go to Goodwill in Tillamook, grab fish and chips, go to the Tillamook Creamery, and then go to Cape Lookout State Park. But instead of driving down the 101 along the coast to avoid the coastal flood warning, we're like, okay, how about we'll go back up to Astoria and then more inland through the forest. But this is where things get even more interesting. We're able to go back up Astoria into the forest, but as we start, getting more into the forest where there are taller trees and stuff, it's pretty windy. I don't even know how far into it we were, but we weren't even deep into the forest yet. There was one point when we were driving, again, it's super windy. We see like leaves and branches and stuff falling, but there was one point where there were like big branches falling, and one of the branches fell and hit our windshield. Our windshield already had a crack in it, but it made like a little bit more of a crack in there. We're driving more inland because the coast was pretty bad, but it's still super windy here, and a tree branch hit the front of the car. I think we're okay though. Just continuing to drive carefully. That was kind of when I got really scared, because I was like, things are falling and could potentially hurt us, So from that point, we were just driving pretty slowly, kind of avoiding branches and stuff on the road. We'd see that trees fell and kind of blocked the road. There's one point where we get to this one spot and a big tree fell and blocked both sides of the road. And there's just this one person there who I guess had a chainsaw and was just cutting up this tree. It wasn't somebody from like the Oregon Department of Transportation or anything like that. It was just like a regular person. And so he was really working on like clearing up the road, and then slowly like more people started helping. Can't tell, but Anthony's out here. Good job cleaning that up.
I did that one, and that one, and that one.
So we crossed that part of the road, and we're still driving through the forest. The winds are still super fast, and I'm just so scared. And so that whole time I'm like praying the rosary, praying the guardian angel prayer, just like so scared. So we get to a point where we're stopped and just like in a line of cars, and you can't really see what's ahead. At that point, it was already like later in the afternoon, and we didn't know what other road closures we'd encounter, and we would still be driving through the forest. We still had a good amount of distance to get to Tillamook. So trip update, we're just deciding to go back to Astoria. Our third time going to Astoria. Oh my gosh. So we turn around, basically go through everything that we just drove through. We get to a point when we're out of the forest, and I'm like, oh, thank God. I feel like I can breathe because I don't have to worry about all these trees and stuff potentially falling on us. But we're in another line of cars that are turning around. What does it look like?
Oh my God.
Whoa.
You can't even.
You can't even see the road. So we're like, okay, how do we get back to Astoria? Because that's the only way that we know. That's the way that we came. And there wasn't that much service in that area. Thankfully, along that road, there was a store and restaurant called Big O Saloon that we were able to stop by. And we asked the people working there for directions, and they were able to get us directions to go back to Astoria. When they were giving me the directions, there was no map or anything. So, sorry if you hear the sink. Where was I? So they're giving me directions. There's no map or anything to reference. And I am not familiar with the area. Like, I don't even know like what's north, what's south and stuff. I was trying to visualize it in my head when they were giving me directions, but I couldn't. When I got back into the car, I like immediately recorded the directions that they gave me just so I could remember it. Recording directions. So we get out of this parking lot, turn left, and then it's the first right and go down a back road. Then eventually you'll get to a bridge that's closed. And once you hit the bridge, you'll turn left. But the gentle left, not the sharp left. You do not want to go up Saddle Mountain Road. You go left. So thankfully their directions worked and we were able to follow them successfully. When we got to Warrenton, I just felt so relieved. We're safe. We're in the Costco parking lot where there's food, parking, we can sleep here, and we're safe. Away from the coast and the rivers where it could possibly flood. But that was an adventure. That was crazy. We ended up getting food, deciding what to do. And our plan E was we were going to try car camping in the Costco parking lot or the Walmart parking lot. And we gave them a call because we had Manny with us. And if we weren't allowed to car camp there and someone came knocking on the door, Manny would just freak out. And we didn't really want that. So we wanted to double check that it was okay. So Costco said, actually, in the city of Warrenton, you're not allowed to sleep in your car. But they were saying in a town south of them, we could try going over there. So we're like, okay, we're going to car camp down there. So I called a McDonald's over there. So I was like, it looks like that has like a good parking lot. Maybe that should be fine. So I called them. They're like, yeah, it should be okay. Don't do it multiple times. Like if it's just one time, it's probably fine. So we're like, okay, cool. So we drive down there, and once we get to the parking lot, there are like 2 sketchy people walking by. There's an RV like that looked pretty sus in the background. So I was like, dude, I'm not comfortable sleeping here. So we drive again, trying to figure out what to do at this point. It's later in the evening, so places are closing. I'm like looking to see if there are maybe like RV parks that we could stay at, but they were already closed. There was a rest stop, I think, on the Washington side. I forget why we didn't want to stay there too. But in the end, we were able to find a car camping site at Fort Stevens State Park in Oregon. And I was able to make a reservation online, so we officially had a spot locked in. We got there, we just did our whole car camping setup. It wasn't raining that much, thankfully, so it was a little bit easier to do the whole setup. So as we were about to be inside for the night, Anthony just finished brushing his teeth. He gets in the car, and then the car alarm goes off and won't stop. And we're here in a campground that's like quiet, so quiet. There's people like in tents and cabins and stuff. And the car alarm just won't stop. Like we can't start the car. The remote on the car won't work. And then we just don't have tools to like turn off the battery. And so it felt like it was going off for so long. And eventually, I think Anthony like went knocking at the cabin doors to see if anybody had any tools or something. And Anthony was able to borrow like a wrench to basically turn off the battery. So at that point, thankfully, everything was good. Car alarm wouldn't go off. We were able to still get in and out of the car, and we could sleep. Okay, so the next morning we wake up, not raining, thankfully. We slept pretty well and just enjoyed, making breakfast, not in the rain, basically like what you would expect from a car camping trip. And that meal was so good, so well deserved too. Then it was time to turn the car on again. And somehow Anthony was able to turn it on and the alarm didn't go off. So once we got the car started, we drove to Home Depot to get our own set of wrenches and stuff. And from there, we decided like what we were going to do today. And I was just like, I don't really want to risk it. Yesterday was too much. We don't need to do too much today. So we ended up deciding, okay, we'll just drive down the 101, which was clear now, thankfully, go to the Tillamook Creamery, and then go home. So we were able to do that successfully. We were rewarded with some cheese and ice cream, enjoyed that in the car, and then we were able to safely drive back home. So the main lesson learned from this trip is do not mess with weather warnings. They are no joke. Day 2 is so funny because we literally drove this many miles. I still have to calculate it, but I'll put it here on the screen. We drove this many miles just to start at the southern tip of Washington at Cape Disappointment State Park and end up in like the northern tip of Oregon. Thank you for watching today's video. If you enjoyed this, I have other videos on my channel from other car camping trips and backpacking trips and stuff. Subscribe to my channel if you like this type of content. Let me know in the comments below if you have anything to say, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye.